Okay, students. Today we'll go with the next topic of our Python is exception handling. Okay. Yesterday we already covered the introduction to the exception handling, and we also covered how to define the exceptions and how to handle the exceptions. Okay, today we'll see with the examples. Okay, how to handle the exceptions in the Python and what will be the different types of errors that are raised in the our regular programming of the Python. Okay, just we'll go on with the examples. Okay, exception is nothing but whenever we are writing a program, if we done any mistake in the program, okay, then that is called as the exception. Okay, this exception is also raised whenever we are doing any mistake at the time of running of our program. Okay, that is where whenever you are doing a error in giving a value of the program, or whenever you are giving a wrong syntax of the or wrong structure of the statement, okay, then you will get the exceptions. Okay, so like whenever you are calling a function, if you are passing a different arguments which are not expected by the function, okay, then you will get the wrong errors. And okay, you will be get the different exceptions which are not listed. Okay, so whenever you are accessing a file which is not which is not available in the system, then you will get the file not found exception. And if you are dividing numbers with the zero, then you'll get the zero division error. Okay, and if you are doing any functions with the wrong number of arguments, okay, or you are, is there any exceptions can be raised by the outside of the Python, like IO exceptions and system exceptions. Okay, these exceptions can be handled by the our program. Okay, because these exceptions can cause the termination of the program, and it which can make a loss of the data. Okay, so that we need to handle the exception and we need to provide the alternate code for the exception. Okay, so that the user cannot lose the data. Okay. Okay, there's a simple example. We'll start with a simple example of the exception. Okay, there is a is given with the value 5 and B is with the 0, and result is equals to A divided by B. That is, we are trying to divide the A value with the B. Okay, then you will be get the error is division by 0. Okay, this is the exception which is raised by the Python. Okay, the Python virtual machine raises the exception, and it gives the information like line number where the exception is raised, where the exception is executed. Okay, and the statement where the exception is occurred. Okay, result equals to A divided by B, and also gives the exception name, like the exception name is zero division error, and the description of the exception is division by 0. Okay, so here A is the first value, B is the second value. It is trying to divide with the B. Okay, so it gives us the Python regular message. Okay, so this message we can modify by using the exception handling, and we can specify in the program and we can handle the our exception. Okay, the process of handling these exceptions in the Python is called as the exception handling process. Okay, for this exception handling, we require some specific statements in the exception Python. Okay, those statements are, one is the try statement, another one is the except statement. Okay, using these statements we can handle the exceptions. The try block which contains the statements where we are expecting the exception, that is where we can guess the exception, and those statements we can write in the try block. And except statement which contains the statements okay, which are the alternate for the or exception. Okay, whatever the solution we want to provide for the exception, that we can write in the except block. And a single try block can have multiple except blocks. Okay, because there may be the more than one different types of exceptions may rise in the try block, so that we can write the different types of except blocks for different exceptions. Okay, whenever there is any exception raised in the try block, it immediately goes to the except block and execute the statements in the except block. Okay. Okay, this is a simple Python script, okay, where we are handling the exception and we are providing the meaningful message. Okay, where irrespective of a Python virtual machine, we are handling the exception and we are providing our own message. Okay, here we are creating a variable which accepts the data from the user and converts it into the integer. Okay, stores into the a variable, and b variable takes another value and stores into the b variable. And now we are want to divide the numbers a divided by b. Okay, so that here I am assuming the exception may be raised in the division. That is, if the user is giving a wrong value at the b, like if the user is giving a value 0 in the b input, okay, then there might be the chances of rising of exception with the divide by 0. Okay, so that I am writing this statement res equal to a divided by b in the try block. Okay, so that here we can expect the exception. Okay, if there is an exception, then it go for the except block. If there is no exception, if the b is having some value other than the 0, then it shows the result equals to res value, the division result. Okay, if the b value is a 0, okay, then it comes to the except block. It doesn't execute the print statement. It comes to the except block. Okay, there is only one except block, so that because here also we have only one chance of exception. Okay, so that here we are writing only one except block. Okay, it directly comes to that except block and prints a message as exception handled. Okay, and we have a one more message is print end of the program. Okay, this will not be executed whenever there is a exception executed, exception raised. If there is no exception, then after this print statement of the result, it comes to here and shows the end of the program. If there is an exception raised, then it shows the except block statements and exit the program. Okay. Okay, this is a one simple example of exception handling. There here we are writing only try block and except block. Try block contains the statements where we are expecting the exception or assuming of an exception. Okay, and except block contains the related messages or related solution for the exception. Next. Okay, nested try blocks. Okay, in some situations we need to specify the nested try blocks. Like we are writing some statements in the try block, and within that we have a chance of chance of arising of another exceptions. Okay, those I want to handle with the another try block. Okay, with the another try block and except block. Then you can write the nested try blocks. Okay, here this example is here we are specifying two variables, number and denominator. Okay, this we are mentioning in the try block. Okay, and here we are accepting a numerator and accepting the denominator. Okay, both are converted into the int and taken into the variables num and den. Okay, so after giving these values, okay, if is there any wrong value is entered in the numerator or denominator, okay, then it raises an exception and goes to this except block. This is a parent try block except. Okay, print invalid input. Okay, say for example, the chances is here, say we need to give the integer value, that is we need to give the some number. Okay, but if the user is giving any wrong value like any alphabet or giving any symbols, okay, or giving any symbols or giving any spaces or something else other than the number, okay, then it raises the exception is invalid input, then it prints the statement invalid input. Here itself it raises the exception and comes to the invalid input. Okay, if there is no exception here, okay, then it enters into this try block. Okay, this try block is to divide the numbers. Okay, numerator divided by denominator. Okay, if the user is giving a number but the denominator value is given as 0, okay, then it raises the exception and it enters into this except block. This is the nested try blocks except block. Here it shows the message as divide by 0 error. Okay, if there is no exception, like user is giving a value other than the 0, if they are giving some value 1 or 2 or something, okay, then it gives the result of the division. Okay, So after the result of the division, then it prints the messages end of the program, and it shows the our output, okay, as a result and end of the program. If there is an exception raised, then it shows the related exception message. Okay, this is the nested try block. Okay, okay, this is an example to know the exception information or exception name. Okay, so actually, whenever we are writing a program without knowing the exception names, that is, it's not compulsory to know all the exception names. Okay, because the Python may have the hundreds of exceptions. Okay, so that whenever we want to know there is an exception is raised, but I don't know the exception name, so that I want to know the exception name. Okay, okay, then I can use this snippet of the code. Okay, first we are importing the system package. Okay, system package. Next we are accepting the two numbers converted into the int, and we are taking the two numbers a and b. And next take a division of the numbers, okay, a divided by b. If there is no exception, print the result. If there is an exception, like 0 is given for the b value, then it comes into the except block, prints a message as exception handled. Then we want to display the exception name also, so that we are giving a second print message as oops sys.exe underscore info. This is the function, exception information function, okay, which returns the data structure of the exception information. Okay, it returns the a tuple of the exception information. Okay, from that I want to get the zeroth indexed value. That is, the zeroth indexed is the exception name. Okay, so that it gives the exception name of the raised exception. Okay, so within the exception information we have multiple information like exception name, exception line number, and exception line statement, and exception description, exception name. Okay, multiple information will be there. Okay, out of that I want to get the only exception name. So exception name is in the zeroth index. Okay, so it prints the exception name also. Next, okay, a try block can have the multiple except blocks. Okay, we'll see an example with the multiple different except blocks. Okay, once we know the exception name, okay, then we can write the multiple except blocks. If we don't know the exception names, we can write only one except block. Otherwise, if we know the exception names, then we can write the multiple except blocks. Okay, so this is the multiple except blocks related code. Okay, we are taking a import system package, and we are taking a two numbers, numerator and denominator. Divide the numbers, numerator divided by denominator, then print the result. If there is no exception, this will be the general program execution. Okay, if is there any exception, okay, that is, I know the exception name also here. Okay, I may be expecting two exceptions in this four lines of a code. Okay, one exception is value error and another exception is zero division error. Okay, value error is the exception which rises by the first two lines. That is, if you are giving a wrong integer value. Okay, other than the integer value, if you are giving other than number, if you are giving any another value, then you will get the value error. If you are giving a zero number, 0 for the denominator, okay, then here in this statement it rises the exception, and so that it comes to the second except block. Okay, zero division error. Okay, so if there is any wrong value in the first two statements, then it comes to the value error and prints a message as invalid input. Okay, otherwise, if there is any problem with the division, like denominator is given as a 0, then it shows the message as divide by 0 error. Okay, so this is the multiple except blocks. Okay, this is used whenever we know the exception names only. Otherwise, we can write a only one except block. Okay, that is common for all the exceptions in the try block. Okay, next. Okay, next, this is the demonstrate the multiple except blocks. Okay, okay, there's another example with the multiple except blocks. Okay, there is a chances of exceptions are in these two lines we can have. Sorry.